How do you begin the play?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Parikshit, and I'm a student of class 12 in this beautiful school. And incidentally, I'm also studying sciences. Well, according to the society, a 12th class science student is that person who's preparing very vigorously for his IIT PMT exams, a person who's put his heart and soul into learning how to survive tomorrow in the world, and a person who's going to run in the rat race and for sure stand somewhere. But when I look back at all the 12 years of schooling that I've had, 5 of them being in Ivy, I wonder, is my mark sheet going to define who I am? Am I going to walk up to a person and say, hello, I'm Mr. 98%? Or am I going to introduce myself with something much more that's there inside of me? What defines me? A hallmarked piece of paper with numbers on it? Well, this reminds me of Ashoka's teachings and what he preached, and I think it would be interpreted in this way. Kush, how do you think it would be interpreted in?
Give us a context, Kush. And then we can begin our exploration.
So many people tell us to think out of the box, but what they don't define is what is the box. The box is basically an excuse to inflict our own biases, cliché and dogmas. The Sarnath pillar is important for the emblem of India. It tells us about how monkhood is all about the ultimate idea of giving up. A monk is not impractical, it is just that he has the courage to look at the world differently. He is not in the rat race of accumulation. After all, anybody taking part in a rat race is nothing but a rat. Transformation to me is a world without dogmas.
So, Parikshit, what would Ashoka talk about transformation? Tell us Ashoka's lines.
I remember reading Ashoka's scripts, which went somewhere like this: I'm defeated, but I've not lost. I've lost, but I'm not vanquished. I'm vanquished, but I'm not obliterated. I, Ashoka, agreed that I've killed, that I've been a part of killing my own 99 brothers. Maybe you will ask me, what will you do with so much blood in your hands? Could those 99 brothers not have lived in peace? Yes, in fact, they did live in peace. Just like Suyodhana and his 99 brothers did. In fact, it was the Pandavas who called him Duryodhana. His actual name was Suyodhana. So yes, those 99 brothers could have lived in peace. But my ambition got the better of me. And I eliminated them one by one. Hang me. I have no regrets. Crucify me, for I am a criminal. But before you do all that, for heaven's sake, do not judge me. If you apply legal principles, I'm wrong. But if you apply transformative principles, then probably you'll be kinder to me. I've died 1,000 deaths inside of me, and I die 1,000,000 times every day. Dear audience, do you die every day when you see injustice around you? Or do you just shrug your shoulders and move on? Please remember, it is the ability to change that counts, and not the ability to just talk about it. Well, his teachings remind me of something. Something very recent. Something we can probably look at in a different angle. A guitar, ladies and gentlemen, which produces such beautiful music. But this guitar was shot down in Paris, in Syria, in London, in Bombay. But did it stop the music that was created by the guitar? It did not. So essentially, who won? The guitar did. And that is what I think Ashoka wanted to tell all of us.
Edict 1, censorship. Edict 1, the first edict.
"1700 years after Ashoka died, and Akbar's reign began, we find that the history has turned into a full circle. Both the kings were looking for the one thread to bind India. And the one thread has so many strands: food, travel, clothing, weaving, painting, and not just that of prey. Prayer is the inner calling, not the outer manifestation. This one lesson is one we need to learn. Transformation for me is change of one to another.
Which change? 51 years later, probably there'll be no Maldives in Bangladesh because the whole country will become a climate change refugee. So then what is climate change? Drop in temperature or absolute obliteration of a nation? Edict 2, water division. The second edict.
Idea, reality, imagination, sight. These are all stray ideas. They are doable, unachievable. In fact, these are building blocks of democracy if you have to change. After all, memories of collection of all memories. It's important to practice Ashoka, not just to read him. Practice, not just read. Transformation to me, a casteless society.
A casteless society. Saving the earth first from caste, then from everything else. Saving our small dreams of small people. Edict 3, talking about the extent of belief. The third edict.
It is important to understand Ashoka, not just from the context of India, but from the context of Asia. In fact, from Volga to Japan, from Sri Lanka to Thailand, his influence has spread fairly large and wide. What is this influence, my dear audience? How long is it sustainable? Do we have the echoes even now? From 273 BC, this entire 41 years of his kingship, till 232 BC, every edict of Ashoka is a practical example for living in peace, harmony in existence, every right to question every single official, including the king, the right to all the faiths to coexist. And if you ask me if it is as important as before, yes, it is. Or you can say as much more important than before. And his ideas were given us as a lifestyle, not as any fashionable commodity in a mall, Innorbit Mall, GBK1 Mall, or not as limited as my CBSE syllabus. Well, what is Buddha? What does Buddha mean? Buddha means awareness. Buddha means to be aware. Awareness with a worldview, which is the key to understand Ashoka. And transformation to me is a journey from being to nothingness.
Which journey? Blowing candles, but the wind takes it off? Which journey? Facebook, WhatsApp, cut off, further cut off, tuition, greater tuition, even greater tuition, fantastic tuition. Which journey? Understanding relativity without Einstein. Which journey? Death of Galileo, forgotten by physics teachers, because life of Galileo is only textbook. Which journey? Archimedes died saving the circles. He's not a floating principle in chapter number 1. Which journey? Blowing candles, candle switched off. Edict 5. Come, Sushant. Tell us that very important edict and why. Come.
King Ashoka explained to us with his life the difference between Jaya and Vijaya. Jaya means the victory of oneself deep inside, and Vijaya means the outer superficial victory. It is Jaya that inspired the term Jai Ho, and not some American flick called Slumdog Millionaire. The transformation of Ashoka has many parallels in world history. For example, Einstein before and after Hiroshima, same person? No. Ambedkar before and after December 6th, same person? No. Martin Luther before and after Malcolm X's killing, same person? No. This, my dear audience, is Ashoka. Transformation means to me a borderless mind.
Transformation to me means a little water for that dead body. Aylan Kurdi being washed up to the shore. Yesterday evening in the Aegean Sea, 17 more children got washed up. Reuters, yesterday evening. This, of course, was a few months back. Children, let's give some water to the dead. The ones we mourn, the ones we always mourn. Lalit, what would Ashoka mean to you?
Dear friends, my conversion to Buddhism was not very abrupt. It was a slow process based on few fundamentals. First, Dhamma. Dhamma is a bit different from Dharma. It means to understand the basics of what one ought to do and not what one should do. Second, Avarna. Varna means a casteist society, and Avarna means a casteless society. And the third most important one is Sarvodaya. It means kindness towards all, the one that Gandhiji followed. My kingdom was from Toshali in the east to Takshila in the west, with the capital in Patliputra, now Patna. Throughout my kingdom, I had placed beautiful edicts made of Pali and Brahmi. Dear folks, the chakra of consciousness, which is there in our national flag, and the lions of Sarnath, which is there in our national emblem, these are not excellence. These are legacies. If my son and daughter went from country to country like ordinary beggars to preach Buddhism. So if you go to Dhauli Peace Stupa, which is there in Bhubaneswar, or if you go to the remains in Junagadh, which is there in Gujarat, you may see that my influence has been far and wide. What did I achieve to make Ahimsa a little more fashionable, to understand inclusivity and not exclusivity, to hopefully make people sick and tired of the politics of surnames, to make people realize that religion is my private practice and the state has nothing to do with it? You may see me in different forms. You may call me Baba Saheb Ambedkar, you may call me Palvankar Balu, or you may even call me an ordinary cobbler from Amravati. It doesn't really matter. The choice after the London bomb blast, the Mumbai bomb blast, and the Paris bomb blast is very clear. The politics of surnames and the politics of faith mastered is my private happiness. It is a way to my soul, and nobody can sponsor my soul.
Then what will transformation be to you?
Transformation for me are the three fundamentals again: Sarvodaya, Avarna, and Dhamma.
Then, do we rise up from slavery? all kinds of slavery, syllabus, merely dragging ourselves out of slavery. CBSE, ICSE, IB, CCE, BCE, OCE, so many CEs. When shall this become parallel curriculum, not co-scholastic? Ritika, tell us about Ashoka and women.
Most of you know that Ashoka edicts lie in India, but many do not know that they also lie in Afghanistan. These edicts are largely found in Kandahar and Jalalabad. They talk about the duty of the state not to kill any living being, nor harm any animal, organism, human. What Ashoka meant is a larger truth, that arms will only get more sophisticated, that a cult or military might can only guard and never foster creativity, that happiness can never be found in the barrel of the gun. With such irony, I say this. My syllabus is ignorant. The newspapers dedicate a small corner to how Afghanistan burns, and these edicts stand there, almost like a living conscience. For me, at least, transformation is the courage and ability to change.
Ritika, 1 minute before you go. If it's ability to change, what change did Ashoka see in his wives and women? Tell us. Tusharakshita, Padmavati, just tell us about them.
Ashoka's ideas on womanhood were very advanced compared to his contemporaries. Be it any of the wives of Ashoka, like Tishurakshita, Karavaki, or Padmavati, all three were strong women and were allowed to express themselves. But when I look at my history textbook, I can see that Tishurakshita met a very eventful end. It says that she once cured Ashoka of worms in his stomach, and he had granted her permission to be king for 7 days. She resented Kunal, King Ashoka's and Queen Padmavati's son, who was the next in line for throne. So she hatched a Lady Macbeth like conspiracy. During these 7 days, she ordered the citizens of Takshila to go and uproot his eyes. Ashoka was obviously enraged when he heard this. He ordered her death. She was burned to death in a lacquer house, and even the citizens of Takshila weren't spared. They were executed for assisting her. But when I look at his daughter, Sangamitra, I can see that she was very different. She followed Ashoka's ideals and traveled all over South Asia spreading Buddhism, and her life was filled with sacrifice. For Ashoka, women's rights were not just instruments of equality, they were also the very fundamental basis of his Buddhism.
And from that sadness of Kalinga came the idea of being another kind of Sufi. The Sufi inside Ashoka. A rich legacy. Khwaja Mohyuddin Chishti, Nizamuddin Aulia, St. Francis Xavier, Dominic Savio, Bakhtiyar Kaki, Banda Bahadur. A huge, rich legacy flowing from all corners. Amongst various epicenters was the Sufi Ashoka. The Sufi who wrote in a brilliant